Hello, hello. Um, Celebrating Asia Pride, that is our next session, and inspiring advocates from Singapore and Sri Lanka, our panelists. I would like to welcome them on to the stage, so please, Dharini, June, Yangfa.
I'm going to do the beauty pageant wave.
So Dharini is our Generation Z representative on the panel. She's the founder of the Grassrooted Trust, founded in Sri Lanka, providing a safe space for marginalized communities. And Yangfa is the chief of Oogachaga, and it's an LGBT counseling agency based in Singapore. And June Chua is the co-founder of the Tea Project. The Tea Project, by the way, caters to the needs of the transgender community in Singapore. Now, before I start this panel, I want to, there's another polling. So please open your apps, and this is the question that we would like to ask you, and we will check the results at the end of this session. Will gay marriage inevitably spread across Asia in the next 5 years? Yes or no? Okay, so now all our panelists have kindly come onto the stage today to share their personal experiences in living in communities that still face discrimination, like Singapore and Sri Lanka. And I have asked them, I would like to ask them this question: would you share with us your coming out story?
All right.
Would you like to start?
Yeah, it was less like coming out and more like hopped out of it. Yeah, it wasn't smooth at all. So I'm Dharini, and just to clarify, I didn't find I am not the founder of the Grassrooted Trust. I work there. Yeah. I've been working there for the last 4 years. I identify as bisexual. Yeah, representation. So, like Nako said, I am a part of Gen Z. And being a part of Gen Z, it was weird because for the first part of my life, I knew nothing at all. And now I feel like I know too much, like about sexuality and the world. And I'm like, enough, please. I first realized that I liked girls when I was 7. Actually, it was someone from Singapore. We had a house guest staying over. And I remember thinking, oh my God, she's so pretty. Like, what? Look at her hair, look at her. And I was kind of obsessed with her. I was 7. And I grew up in a country, like most Southeast Asian countries, where the culture is heteronormative and very patriarchal. So this is funny and kind of sad. I didn't know what homosexuality or LGBT was until I was 15. That's a long time, right? So when I was 7, I was very confused. I was like, what am I doing? What? Why do I? Why? What? And I kind of convinced myself that I wasn't attracted to this girl. I just want to be like this girl. Like, she's very pretty. I just want to be like her. And then I grew up and I realized I don't want to be like her. I want to be under her or over her or whatever. I'm not picky. Yeah. And that was actually, I went to a convent school, so you can imagine, it was just girls everywhere. It was a reckoning. So when I was small, that was the thing. It was a lot of confusion and denial because there wasn't anyone I could ask. I didn't see anything gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender. It was just man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. And I was very confused. And while I was coming to terms in my teenage years, I felt very boxed up. I still remember the first day I saw 2 gay guys in a movie, and I was like, oh my God, they exist. Like, I'm not the only one in the world. There are other people like me. And after that, I felt very boxed out because I felt like if I have to be bisexual, I have to conform to something. If you're gay, you have to be like this. If you're a lesbian, you have to be like this, because that's what I was exposed to: stereotypes and myths and assumptions. I didn't have a real experience or an actual, I didn't know what the truth is. So I had a plan when I was young, which was to run away. So I thought I'll do my A-levels, which is I finish high school, and I will go to America. Now I'm like, what? I'll go to America because that's what I saw. I saw America like this amazing nation where I can be free, because all the movies that I saw, everyone was free there. So I was like, I'll run away to America and I'll be like all bisexual. I can date girls, I can date guys, I can do anything. And then when I was 17, 18, I kind of realized that regardless of where I go in the world, there are people who are going to hate me. And that could be because of my sexuality, my race, my gender, my ethnicity, my religious beliefs. Not everyone's going to accept you everywhere, right? So I thought, okay, so the point is not running away. You stay where you are and you fix it. You deal with it, because running away is not going to be a problem, a solution. So I started working in this field. I joined Grassrooted, which works in the area of reproductive and sexual health education. So what I basically do is I work with kids, I work with teenagers. Because something that I wanted a lot when I was a kid was a support system, someone to talk to, someone to tell me that I'm okay, that I'm valid, that I'm normal, that this is a part of you, this is who you are. And I didn't have that person. So I thought, okay, fine, what happened, but maybe I could be that person for someone else. And right now, in terms of coming out, my family doesn't know I'm bisexual. We had dinner the other week, and I just tested the waters, and I asked my mother, so if I had a girlfriend, can I bring her for Christmas? And she was like, a girlfriend? And I was like, yeah, a gay person. She was like, what do they eat? That's where I am in terms of, I don't know, we eat, I had a very dirty answer in my head, but I couldn't say it. My Gen Z was like, say it, and I was like, don't say it, this is not, like, don't come out this way. So in terms of my family, I'm not out yet, but I am out to my employers, I'm out to my friends. So I do have a family that accepts me and loves me. It's not the family that I was born with, but it's the family that I built. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that I can help other young people, other Gen Zs, other millennials in any way that I can.
Thank you. Wow. Yangfa?
My goodness, how do you follow up from that story, right? And I also know June's coming out story, so yeah. So I never came out to my parents. I'm going to say that kind of carefully. I never came out to my parents voluntarily. They outed me. So I'm not Gen Z. I don't know what generation I am. I came out in the generation or in the time before the internet. Remember those times? Before we had the internet? Before we had social media, back when people wrote letters, and instead of accessing porn online, we would access porn in magazines. So that was basically how I was found out by my parents. They found my secret stash, so I was outed. Saying this on video. So I was at 18, I was outed, and this was even before I became sexually active. So for me, that was something that was so difficult to even deny. So certainly, of course, I had to say, yes, I am gay. Even prior to that, that whole process of, and that's something that reminds many of you in the room will be aware of. It's coming out, it's not a step, it's a process. So for many of us, it's that process of realizing what attraction, whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, or relational. So for me, it was knowing that I had these feelings and kind of feeling alone, and what helped me back then, growing up as a teenager, 11, 12, 13-year-old in an all-boys school, realizing that I'm not alone through reading. So for me, reading, in particular, The Swimming Pool Library by Alan Hollinghurst. He's still around. If anybody knows Alan Hollinghurst, please let him know. Big fan of his. And of course, reading Oscar Wilde and just reading queer literature over the years, and knowing that I'm not alone in these feelings and in my thoughts as well, and desires. And of course, when I was outed by my parents at 18, that was also a particularly difficult time. And then, of course, after that, personally, I also struggled with some mental health issues as well, eating disorders, suicide. I found it very difficult to access services at that time, because when you're 18 living in Singapore back then, this was the last century, so this was the 1990s, you feel so alone and isolated, so the structures or the support services just weren't available to me at the time as an 18-year-old. And of course, over the years, things got better. I found friends and got connected, and which kind of brings me to where I am now. I'm actually registered as a social worker, so a big part of, and I'm not ashamed to say this, in fact, I'm very proud to say this, a big motivation and personal motivation for me is to, well, be that person. It's kind of cliche as well, and yet it applies to me. Be that person that I wish I had for me, with me at that time as well. So all my adult life, my professional work, I've worked in public service, and also after that, before joining Oogachaga 5 years ago, I was working with Samaritans of Singapore, a suicide prevention agency, and now for the past 5 years, I've been working with Oogachaga and supporting and working with people in the LGBTQ community in Singapore. And just before I pass the time on to June, Hong Kong has a special place in my heart because this was where I had gay sex for the first time. So yes, special place in my heart.
So,
my turn. So I'm Jun Chua. I'm 46, going to be 28. So I still consider myself Generation Z. So I'm an out and proud transgender woman living in Singapore. So my coming out stories is very different from the LGB because as a transgender person, our gender identity is very upfront. So how I come out to my parents, I do not sit them down, say, mother, mom, I had something to tell you. No, they saw me in a skirt with makeup on. That's my coming out. For a transgender person, when we say we come out, there is a 360-degree change in our appearance. When we come out, that means we want to transition. So my coming out story is, we don't have coming out story. We don't have the luxury to hide. Like for LGBT people who want to come out, they can come out to their mother, certain group of friends, come out to certain group of friends in the workplace. But for a transgender person, when we came out, that means we decide to transition, we came out to everyone. We had to do multiples coming out to the parents, coming out to the neighbors, coming out to the workplace, come out to the friends. We don't have the luxury to choose who or when we want to come out. That's the biggest difference. And I am coming up now. I'm coming up to you all to say that I'm also a sex worker. I've been a sex worker for 20 years. But I always advocate sex work is what I'm very proud of myself being a sex worker. Oh, thank you! So I always wanted people to see the value of sex work and not sex work itself. So sex work made me who I am today. I'm a founder of NGO, the T Project, which is I founded, and my late sister, we founded a shelter for the homeless transgender people. I also, in 2014, and I also founded, in 2018, I founded Alicia Community Center, a drop-in center for the transgender youth. And we offer counseling services, which is, I think, #1 in Singapore, which is professional certified transgender counselor, counseled transgender clients about sexuality and gender identity. So sex work also made me a filial daughter. Sex work made me a transgender activist. Sex work also won me 2 awards in Singapore. I'm very happy, very proud to say, I'm more proud of my sex work actually, but I'm proud to say I actually won 2 awards. I'm the first transgender woman to win 2 awards in Singapore, which is given by AWARE, a women's organization. Applause, please. And also, I'm also the advocate, Best Promising Advocate in 2016. I'm very hesitant to be labeled, to come out as an activist, because as an activist in Singapore, it's very dangerous. So I always say, so people give me, in Singapore, I'm called a storytelling activist. I'm called an accidental activist. Because when I come up doing community work and starting the shelter at Alicia, I thought I'm providing the most, when I see all the activists here, they're talking about the fighting for the rights of the transgender, changing policies. but I'm helping a group of transgender women who is so far, far left behind. So I'm dealing with transgender who are former or current sex workers, who are elderly, addiction issues, mental issues, attempt suicide, and person living with HIV. Oops, I forgot to tell you, my shelter is also the first shelter that admit transgender person living with HIV. Oh, thank you again, thank you. And the marvelous thing is, I did all this. I always heard people say, oh, I leave my job as a banker, I leave my job as a financial consultant, I leave a six-figure job to start to help the community. But I also can proudly say I leave my career as a sex work to start an NGO. So, and it's not funded by anyone. So because anything LGBT cannot be registered in Singapore, so I'm actually an illegal hawker in Singapore. So my shelter and my community center is not licensed at all. So I registered I registered. I cannot get. I'm appealing after 3 years. I'm still appealing to be registered as a registered entity, so that companies like y'all can do donations to me. But alas, it's been 3 years. It's three long years that I'm still appealing to be registered. But the funny thing in Singapore is so funny. Is that the government sector, the hospitals, the prisons, the family, the social worker is already referring clients to me. So I always say they deny my existence, but they still using my service So that's my coming out story.
Thank you, June. Thank you. So, of course, we've come far, but there's so much more to go in the communities that we all live in and you also live in. So, looking forward, how would you encourage other people to consider or to make decisions about coming out? Shall we start with you, Dharini?
Yeah.
Yes?
In terms of coming out or advice, I don't think I'm the best person to give that, considering what I just said. I'm going to say something controversial, because whenever I hear coming out advice, it's always be strong, be who you are. You have to be strong, you have to be yourself, you have to fight the system. Why don't we tell other people to be nice? Isn't that easier? Why do we always ask the LGBT community to be strong, whereas we can ask everyone else to be nice? Then we don't have to be strong. We can just be ourselves. And I think that's a big problem in our society, especially in South Asia, because we don't have something called empathy. Because whenever I work in a specific community, like I work a lot with students, and when I work with parents, they're like, what do you know? You're not a mother. How do you know my sorrows? When I work with the gay community, you're not gay, how do you know what I'm going through? Or you're not trans, you don't know what I'm going through. You're not straight, you don't know what I'm going through. I don't have to be all those things to understand what you're going through. I have empathy, and I can relate to what you're going through, and that's something we should all have. If we can respect ourselves, and if we can respect other people, and if we can respect difference, I think we don't have to come out. And that's the ideal world that I would want. And in terms of talking to the LGBT community, and specifically Gen Z, I feel like I wish somebody had told this to me when I was young. Why am I saying when I was young? I'm still young. It told this to me a few years ago. We have to stop comparing ourselves to other people. First thing, whenever I talk about challenges that I have because of my sexuality, people are like, oh my God, shut up. I say, oh my God, that girl is so pretty, I wish I could ask her out. People are being killed for their sexuality. Your problem doesn't matter. People are being stoned to death. People are being moved out of their country. So you can't talk about dating. I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to talk about my problems. Just because someone has it worse than you, it doesn't mean your problem doesn't matter. It's not a competition. We're not saying who suffers more. We have different issues in the community, and I feel like all of them need to be addressed. We can't ask other people to shut up just because we're having it worse. And finally, we have to stop throwing around the word privilege, especially the Gen Z community. Because whenever I hear something, an achievement that has been achieved by the LGBT community, we say the word, oh my God, y'all are so privileged. You're going to Hong Kong to represent your country, you're so privileged. You came out to your mother, you're so privileged. Your country doesn't criminalize you, you're so privileged. What does it mean to be privileged? Privileged is being able to afford an iPhone over an Android. Being respected and accepted and loved for who you are is not a privilege. That is a right as a human being. So we have to stop, as a community, as the Gen Z generation, we have to stop setting the bar so low and make sure that we stand up for basic human rights and nothing below that. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Dharini.
For me, the word coming out it can mean so many things to so many people, and certainly I have a very personal take on the term and the process, because based on my own experience, I never had the option of coming out to my parents. I was outed, so I'm a very strong believer in coming out as a very personal decision. Naka, we discussed the phrasing of the question that she just asked. One way of looking at it is, in your business corporate setting, do you have a responsibility to encourage your queer staff to come out? So I suggested, well, maybe not so much about encouraging your staff to come out, but perhaps let's talk about providing that environment that's safe enough for LGBT staff to come out if and when they feel safe, they want to. So that decision is still theirs. That's not a decision for anyone else to make. Coming out is unique. It's a unique decision, a unique experience. It's personal to everyone. And also that's for LGBT staff and employees. Another aspect of coming out is also for allies. We sometimes forget that allies are with us, should be with us, and we need to have allies in this conversation as well. I get the point earlier about friends and allies. Personally, I have a preference for the term allies, because allies, well, we have certain expectations of allies. Allies have a role. Friends, a bit different. Friends can be nice. Friends can be nasty too. Allies need to be something else. Allies have a responsibility, and allies need to come out. So likewise, the environment that you have in your corporate business needs to be safe enough for allies to come out too. So that's my point for you to think about.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm the biggest advocate to advocating coming out as early as you can. So I became aware I'm a transgender when I aged 12, hormone therapy 15, went for sex reaffirmative surgery at age 17. So I always tell those that came to me and ask me whether they should come out, whether they are transgender, they identify as transgender, what should they do? I always tell them this: the greatest gift you can give yourself is to be the truth, authentic you. Every day when I wake up and I look in the mirror and I see myself as a woman, I am so happy because I'm already living my fairy tale life. Have you all? Thank you.
So now I think we have the poll's results with us. Will gay marriage inevitably spread across Asia in the next 5 years? Yes, 54%, and no, 46%. What do we make of this?
I'll just scribble a note to Dharini, and I just say, 5 years, right? Bearing in mind we're from Singapore and Sri Lanka, we still have criminalization in our countries. We don't even know whether we'll get decriminalization in our countries in 5 years' time. So perspective,
But having said that, in 1971 or 73, we are given gender marker changed if we underwent sex reassignment surgery in 1971 in Singapore. So Singapore is a very unique place. We are progressive in some way, but yet not progressive. So I went through a sex reassignment surgery, so I have my gender marker changed so I can marry someone of the opposite sex. Why the awkward silence? Aren't you happy for me? So I just wanted to let you all know Singapore is very, very unique country. We are like a very great country. I don't know how to say. So I just want to. Okay, here comes the point. I'm single. I'm looking for a partner. Thank you.
So any closing remarks from our panelists, Dharini?
We were talking a lot about LGBT community in the workplace, and growing up, I felt like I told you about stereotypes and what I consumed through the media. And I felt like I had to be a lumberjack or some kind of truck driver, or I had to cut my hair short, because that's what I saw. That's what I thought women who like women have to be. And I'm pretty sure that people who identify as gay would have gone through the same thing. Could have. So I think media plays an important role. So when you work in corporate, make sure that your marketing and your advertising area is also sensitized to these things, because it can go a long way. Because already our media is so rooted in heteronormative and patriarchal values. So, for example, when I came to Hong Kong, there were like posters in the airport. So the doctor was a man and the lady in the toilet ad was a woman. So why? What do we get out of it? What do kids get out of it? And even when people hire LGBT people for their work, it's as to tick a box. Okay, so we have a gay in the office. We are great. We are inclusive. We support equality. We support the LGBT community. It shouldn't be like that. Respect and acceptance shouldn't be conditional. So if you're going to be inclusive for the sake of being inclusive, that's not representation, that's tokenism. And that is not what we are fighting for. What we are fighting for is, don't hire me because I'm gay, hire me because I'm good at what I do. That's what I would ask the corporate representatives here to do when they get back to their respective countries.
Dharini, I think we've just had a question from the app. Do you think that bisexuals are often neglected in conversations on LGBTQ equality?
Yeah, I've been told that it's not real multiple times. Like, pick a side. You're just confused. Right? I told myself to pick a side. Every time I see a girl that I like, I'm like, the gay feels are coming. Like, no. So whenever I go to, especially in Sri Lanka, right? It's hard to find gay people because we're all hiding. Most of us are. So to find, the first time I met a bisexual in Sri Lanka was when I was in Kathmandu earlier this year for the Salzburg seminar. And I was like, oh my God, someone else other than me. They're often neglected, and the reason for that is that we don't include it in our daily conversations. I'm not sure about the Western countries here, but Asia, South Asia especially, we don't even talk about sex. How are we going to talk about bisexuality, where you have sex with whoever you want? So it's difficult to have those conversations, and when we are at a stage where everything is silent, we don't talk about things, so there's silence, and because of silence there's so much ignorance. And I personally believe that all these problems, discrimination, stigma, prejudice, it all comes because we don't talk. We don't talk about things that we should. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, very much neglected, but I hope right now not neglected, so that's great. So hopefully in the future we would be represented better in across the world.
Thank you. So Yangfa, your closing remarks.
My closing remark will be. Oh, do we want to do?
Yeah, shall we?
yeah.
Whichever you prefer.
Let's do the question. First, the question is: do we, in Singapore and Sri Lanka, have any confidence that decriminalization of gay sex will happen soon? For me, it will one day. I'm not sure what soon means. Like I mentioned earlier, for me, it's certainly in Singapore. At least can't speak on behalf of Sri Lanka. Personally, I don't think it will happen that soon. Having said that, right now there are 2 cases pending in court to challenge the constitutionality of our Section 377A. What will happen from that, we don't know yet. Certainly, everyone's very optimistic about it. Well, again, depends what soon means, how it will play out. Sri Lanka?
In terms of Sri Lanka, I'm sure most of you all know what happened in our country the last month. We had several terrorist attacks across the country. And right now, there's a lot of political unrest and social unrest. So things like LGBT rights, abortion rights, gender equality are way down the priority list right now. So when you talk about LGBT rights, people are like, this is not our priority right now. We need to talk about safety. We need to talk about protecting our people. I know what we went through is horrible and unfortunate, but how is it different? The people that were killed during the Easter Sunday attacks were killed because of a part of their identity, because of their religion. So we are talking about the same thing, being discriminated and ostracized because of a part of your identity. So I don't think it's gonna, Section 365 and 365A is gonna get decriminalized soon. And I am not even sure when we are gonna get same-sex marriage, but I'm sure it's gonna happen sometime. And if we get a better government and better support from people higher up, I'm pretty sure it will happen in the next 10 years.
Oh, maybe to respond to your question earlier, Naka, my suppose point will be to, I'll be completely unoriginal, something else for you to take away, to echo what Pang said earlier about how for many of us in the NGO sector, in the civil sector, people sector, working with the community, a lot of what we do precisely because it's not safe. Sometimes, again, to be fair, in the corporate sector, you do things that are safe. So let's start having lots of conversations about providing safety. I'm not so sure in the Singapore context whether it would be appropriate to talk about promoting, because that word often is very loaded. Some people will misuse it. I would like to have more conversation about providing safe environments for your employees, for their family members as well. So providing those safe spaces to do things, to have conversations. So that's what I would like to leave you with.
Thank you. June, well, you're obviously looking for a partner, but you're
No.
closing.
So, if you're so if you recall, one Indian gentleman talking about the transgender community in India, there's only two options for them. It's either sex work or beg for money. Sex work I did already, been there, done that. So now I'm going to beg for money. Because my tea project cannot be registered. I cannot have grants. I received 0 grants from the government, and I cannot have donation from the company. So I beg each of you. I'm looking highly upon you all. So everyone come out Hong Kong $5,000, and then I can maintain my shelter for another year. So please email me. You got my contact in the app. So if don't go to that Gucci, don't buy that Prada shoes, don't buy that Prada bag. Gain yourself some karma. That's how you go to heaven. After you donate, after you give me the Hong Kong 5,000, then you can do that naughty thing that you're planning to do. So I've been a sex worker now. Now I'm begging for money now. So if you all please message me privately or what. If everyone here came out Hong Kong 5,000, it's like a Prada bag for you all. Seriously, it's not. It's a Gucci shoes for you all. So that I can help to maintain my shelter for another year, or maybe I can start a shelter for the children. Because in Singapore, we have the phenomenon that children came up being aware as transgender as early as 4 years old. So Singapore is again very gray area. We actually have a clinic, I don't know what I can say. We actually have a clinic, have a affirming psychiatrist who counsel children under 16. Who counsel children under 16. And I have a very scary story. It's a trans man, 18 years old, committed suicide because the family is not affirming. The whole thing is the trans man never died. His fall is bricked by a tree, and he's now paralyzed from the waist down. Yes. So I'm hoping to start, not a shelter, a safe space for the children, for person under 16, or to start programs in my Alicia Community Center. But I really, really do need your help. I'm the only one person working at T Project. So one person, one woman gang, and I started a shelter. I started Alicia Community Center. Just imagine if you all throw your money at me. What marvelous work can I do with all your funding? I cannot imagine. With 0 funding, I can start 2 things. I cannot imagine. And I must stress that T Project is the only trans-specific social service support, although not registered in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a minute left for any questions from the floor, if anybody has any questions.
Marriage proposals to June can be taken offline.
No, don't.
All right.
Private message me.
Let us thank the speakers on the panel. Thank you, Dharini. Thank you, Yangfa, and thank you, June. Thank you. Oh, thank you.